Kofi stared at the empty kitchen table, the note from Amma clenched in his trembling hand. The words blurred before his eyes, the ink smudged by his tears. She was gone. Amma, the woman he had loved, the mother of his children, had left him without a word, without a second glance. How it all started. Life had been very different. Kofi was a young, hard-working man with dreams that reached as far as the sky. He worked in a small but growing business handling finances and dreaming of one day having a family of his own. He was kind-hearted, known in his community for helping neighbors and offering a warm smile to everyone he met. Amma was beautiful and spirited, full of laughter and had a way of bringing light into every room she entered. They met at a local celebration introduced by friends, and from that day on they were inseparable. Amma loved his ambition, his kindness, and the way he looked at the world with optimism and hope. Kofi was drawn to her warmth and the way she cared for others, especially for family and friends. Their courtship was simple, filled with quiet moments, shared meals, and long walks by the river. They dreamed of a future together, a home filled with laughter, children, and love. Soon after they married. They welcomed their first child, followed by two more in the years that followed. Life was beautiful in those early days, a life they both cherished and nurtured with every ounce of their heart. Kofi was a man who valued family above all. He had worked hard and in time he was promoted to the position of senior staff at his firm, a role that afforded him a comfortable lifestyle. From the very beginning, Kofi had taken on the full responsibility of providing for his family financially, allowing Amma to be a stay-at-home mom because she insisted that she wanted to focus entirely on raising their children properly, and Kofi had readily agreed. After all, they could afford it now. His income was more than sufficient to cover all their needs, and he liked the idea of his wife being able to dedicate her time to their children without any distractions. Their life was pleasant, even luxurious. Amma enjoyed to the fullest the privileges that came with being married to a man like Kofi. She dressed in the finest clothes and adorned herself with the most fashionable accessories, always ensuring she was the best dressed woman in their neighborhood. She insisted that her car be replaced every 2 years, claiming that anything less was beneath the status of being the wife of a wealthy man. She demanded regular upgrades to their home and the latest gadgets and appliances to maintain the image of prosperity. Kofi, who took pride in being a good provider, happily indulged this request. After all, he could afford it. And as far as he was concerned, keeping his family happy was his top priority. He even went the extra mile to make things easier for Amma. He hired a cook to prepare meals, a cleaner to keep the house spotless, and even nanny to assist with the children when needed. This way, Amma's only responsibility was to ensure that the children were well taken care of and enjoyed their childhoods to the fullest. Their children, Jessica, William, and Timothy, were sent to the best schools in the neighborhood, and Kofi was proud of the life he had built for his family. He loved waking up early in the morning, getting ready for work, and leaving his wife and children still sleeping peacefully in their warm, comfortable bed. One evening, as they sat down to dinner, Amma brought up something that had been bothering her. Kofi, she said, stirring her soup. The neighbors just got a new car. Kofi looked up from his plate, curious. Oh, that's nice for them. Amma frowned, setting down her spoon. Yes, but it makes our car look old. Don't you think it's time we got a new one? Kofi glanced out the window at the shiny, sleek car in their driveway. It was barely a year old, barely used. But the car is still in perfect condition, Amma. Do we really need to replace it so soon? Amma folded her arms. It is not about the condition, Kofi. People expect us to keep up with appearances. You are a senior accountant, for crying out loud. And I am your wife. We can't afford to look like we are falling behind. Kofi sighed, rubbing his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. He loved his wife, but sometimes her demands were hard to keep up with. We don't need to impress anyone, my dear. Our children are happy and we have everything that we need. Isn't that what matters? Amma shook her head. No, Kofi, that is what matters to you. But in this neighborhood, appearances matter. And I am not just your wife, I am the woman that people respect. And I don't want that to stop. Kofi felt a little tired, but he nodded, not wanting to argue. All right, I will look into it, he said quietly, although he wasn't entirely sure it was necessary. This wasn't the first time Amma had pushed for something expensive and most times unnecessary. She always wanted the latest clothes, the most fashionable bags, the most beautiful shoes. She wanted their house to look the best, her car to be the newest, and her life to be as glamorous as possible. Kofi had tried his best to provide. He worked long hours, sometimes even bringing work home, just to make sure they could afford the lifestyle she wanted. But deep inside, Kofi knew something was missing. While he was happy to work hard and provide for his family, he sometimes felt like Amma's happiness was tied too much to material things. She didn't seem as concerned with their children's emotional well-being or their family's bond, which was the reason for her staying home and not working. So he doesn't understand why she's not keeping to the original plan of taking care of their children and making sure the home is run smoothly. All her attentions are now diverted to keeping up appearances and making sure that no other woman in the neighborhood addresses her or outperforms her in showing wealth. He was tired, but he loved his wife and he doesn't want to make her unhappy. But one day, everything changed. When he got home that evening, his children ran up to him as usual, but there was no joy in his heart. Daddy, what is wrong? William asked, his big eyes full of concern. Kofi forced a smile. Nothing, son. Everything is fine. But everything was not fine. How was he going to tell Amma? Kofi waited until after dinner to break the news to his wife as he prepared for bed. Amma, he began, trying to keep his voice calm. I have something to tell you. Amma, who had just finished brushing her hair, looked up. What is it, dear? You look serious. Um, well, Kofi began, not knowing how to say what he had to say. I lost my job today, he said quietly. The company had to let me go. They are downsizing. For a moment, there was silence. Then Amma's face twisted with disbelief. What? How could they let you go? You have been there for years. You have sacrificed so much for them. You are part of the people that built and grew that company. So what kind of downsizing are they doing that they had to let you go? Amma blasted furiously, standing up in anger. I know, Kofi said, sighing, but it is not something I can control. The company is not mine. The economy is tough and the company had to make some difficult decisions. Amma's eyes narrowed. So what are we supposed to do now? How are we going to maintain everything? The house, the cars, the children's school. I still have some savings, Kofi said. We will be fine for a little while. And I am already looking for another job. Amma paced the room. This is a disaster, Kofi. I can't live like this. We have a lifestyle to maintain. What will people say? Kofi's heart ached at her words. Amma, he said, using his pet name for her. We will get through this. It's just for a while. I will find something, but we may need to cut back a little for now. Just for a little while. Cut back? Amma scoffed, her eyes flashing with anger. I didn't sign up for this, Kofi. I will not live like a poor person. He looked at his wife, feeling a heaviness settle in his chest. He had always done his best to provide for her, but now it seemed that nothing he had done mattered. All she cared about was the money, the image, the luxury. They had their first serious argument that night, but Kofi felt bad afterwards and tried to apologize, but Amma refused to listen, so Kofi found himself in the spare room. He sat at the edge of the bed, the dim light from the lamp casting long shadows across the room. His thoughts wandered back to when he first met Amma. Those early days when love was simple and life hadn't yet thrown its hardest challenges their way felt like a distant dream. He hadn't grown up with much, but his family had always been full of love and hope. He worked his way up from the bottom, starting out as a junior clerk, determined to build a better life for himself. In those days, he had the world at his feet with a promising career ahead of him, and women from influential families vying for his attention. Many of them had money, influence, and connections, things that would have made his life easier. But none of that mattered to him. All he ever desired was to live a peaceful and a happy life. But now look where life had brought him: an angry wife and no job. Where exactly did he get it wrong? He continued to question himself late into the night. One day, Ahmad demanded for an amount of money he couldn't afford at once. He gave her a part of it, promising to make it up the following week, but Amma flared up. "So you are telling me we are broke now?" she snapped, her voice sharp. "It is only temporary, Mama," he replied, trying to keep his tone steady. "I will find another job. I just need some time." But Amma wasn't interested in patience or support. She began to treat him with disdain. Openly showing her resentment, she no longer made an effort to be kind. Instead, she grew cruel, refusing to serve him food because he hadn't earned it, and mocking him in front of their children. "Look at your father," she would say. "He failed us. He can't even keep a job to care for his own family." Kofi felt the sting of her words. But what hurt him more was the effect it was having on the children. They looked at him with confusion, hurt, and sometimes even fear. He tried to shield them from the worst of Amma's anger, tried to reassure them that things would be okay, but each day it became harder. He would sit alone at night wondering where he had gone wrong, feeling the weight of his family's pain and his own broken dreams. All he wanted was to keep his family together, to protect them from the struggles they faced, but Amma's cruelty cut deeper than any hardship he had ever known. And as the days passed, Kofi could feel the love he had once known slipping further and further away, leaving behind only the ashes of a life he could barely recognize. Despite the pain he faced at home, Kofi clung to one thing that gave him hope: his children. They were innocent, unaware of the weight of adult struggles, and he wanted to protect them from the bitterness that had settled over their household. Every day he would sit with them after school, helping them with homework, sharing stories, and listening to their dreams. Kofi did everything he could to keep his children's lives as stable as possible, even as his own life felt like it was falling apart. He used the little money he managed to make from odd jobs to buy them school supplies and to make sure they had enough food. Sometimes he went without meals, but he didn't mind. Seeing his children smile, knowing that they were taken care of, was enough to keep him going. But Amma made it hard. She continued to complain, scoffing whenever Kofi brought home groceries. Instead of luxury items, she criticized him constantly, calling him a failure, telling the children that their father could no longer provide as he once did. Kofi saw the confusion in their young eyes, the way they looked at him for answers that he couldn't give. One evening, as he sat with his youngest daughter, who looked up at him with wide, worried eyes, "Daddy, why is mom always angry?" Kofi felt his heart ache. He didn't want his children to carry the weight of their mother's disappointment. He didn't want them to feel that they were somehow responsible. He forced a smile, placing a gentle hand on her shoulders. "Sometimes people get upset, my dear. It is normal. But remember, you are loved. Daddy will always be here for you no matter what." His daughter nodded, though her eyes are still filled with questions. Kofi wished he could make her understand. But how could you explain a mother's bitterness to her own child, who just wanted her family to be whole? Amma's resentment only grew with each passing day. She became colder, distant, often leaving the house for hours without a word. Spending what little money Kofi managed to save on things that didn't matter. All her intention was to keep up the appearance that she had created all on her own. She no longer made an effort to hide her disdain for him, and Kofi worried, seeing how it was affecting the children. He tried to talk to her, but it was having no effect. So one night, after the children had gone to bed, he called his wife to talk to her, but he could see that his words were not having any form of move on her. "This is not the life I wanted," she said, her voice full of contempt, "and I didn't marry you to live like a pauper." Kofi looked at her, tired and defeated. "Amma, I am doing the best I can right now. We are all struggling. Can't we at least try to support each other through this period?" Amma laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Support you? So I should start working at what age? Why did you allow me to stop working? You should have insisted when I suggested. After all, you are the head of the family. Please count me out of this foolishness you are suggesting right now. I deserve better than this." Kofi clenched his jaw, swallowing the hurt. He had long stopped defending himself. Arguing with Amma only seemed to make things worse, and he didn't want the children to see them fighting. He knew that no matter what he said, Amma would never be satisfied. And so he sat there in silence, feeling more alone than he ever had, wondering how much longer he could endure this. Their home, once filled with warmth and laughter, had turned cold. Bills piled up, creditors started calling, and the shelves grew emptier. Anna could feel the tension in every corner of the house like a storm waiting to break, but she didn't have the patience for all of this. All the lifestyle she has carefully built up, the image she has crafted for herself, she watched breaking down every day, and her bitterness grew. One evening, after another long day of struggling to stretch what leads to the heart, Kofi had sat down across from her, his eyes tired but pleading. "Mama, I know things are hard," he said quietly, "but I need you to stay with me. I need you to believe in me, to believe what we share, and to believe that we can get through this." She had looked at him, a thousand emotions swelling within her. She wanted to believe him. She really, really did. But "I don't know, Kofi," she said, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." And so, after months of struggling, of feeling as though she was sinking further into despair, Amma made a decision that would change everything. Kofi stared at the empty kitchen table, the note from Amma clenched in his trembling hand. The words blurred before his eyes, the ink smudged by his tears. She was gone. Amma, the woman he had loved, the mother of his children, had left him without a word, without a second glance. In that moment, the silence of the house became deafening. The words that had once held laughter, warmth, and dreams now seemed to close in on him. His hands shook as he read her words, as if hoping they might somehow change. "Kofi, I can't stay here anymore," the note said. "I need to find myself. And I can't do that if I keep waiting for things to get better with you. I hope you understand. Please take care of the children." He didn't understand. All he knew was the emptiness in his heart and the weight of his children's questions that he would have to answer. He sank into the chair, feeling the weight of her absence settle around him like a shadow. He knew that things had been hard, that he had failed to provide as he once had, and he knew that her constant berating of him was not good. But still, he had never imagined that Amma would leave, that she would abandon him and the children in their time of greatest need. As the sun brightened in the sky, the children came into the kitchen, rubbing their sleepy eyes. They looked around confused as if sensing that something was wrong. Kofi took a deep breath, gathering the strength to face them, to tell them that their mother had left. "Where's Mom?" his youngest asked, her voice small and uncertain. Kofi forced a smile, though his heart felt like it was breaking. "Mom had to go away for a while." They looked at him confused, but they accepted his explanation. But the days that followed were filled with emptiness. Kofi tried to keep the family together, tried to fill the void that Amma had left behind. But the house felt different, colder, as if the warmth that Amma had brought into their lives had vanished along with her. Every night he sat alone by the window watching the darkness outside, wondering where Amma was. If she ever thought of them, he tried to understand why she had to leave, what had driven her away, but each time he thought about it, he was left with only one question: was he not enough? Kofi worked tirelessly, taking on odd jobs since his white-collar job was not forthcoming, doing whatever he could to keep his children afloat. Family and the few friends he told rallied around him, offering small gestures of support, a kind word, a warm meal. But it was his children who gave him the strength to get up each morning. He found joy in their innocent laughter and the way they looked up to him, trusting that he would always be there. Because of them, he didn't have the option of giving up. But late at night, when the children were asleep, where everywhere was quiet, and he was alone at last, left with his own thoughts and his reality, he allowed himself to grieve, to remember the love he had shared with Amma. He remembered the way she had once laughed, the sparkle in her eyes, the dreams they had built together, the promises they had made. He tried not to resent her, but the hurt lingered, a wound that refused to heal. And yet he continued on, each day finding a new reason to keep going, to keep fighting for his family. In the days that followed, Kofi worked tirelessly. He found strength he didn't know he had, a resilience born from the love he held for his children. He taught them how to help around the house, took on new jobs, and became both mother and father to them. Though the pain of Amma's departure lingered, he slowly began to heal. His children grew, their laughter filling the house once more, their love the light that guided him through the darkest moments. And in time, Kofi learned that he was enough, not because of wealth or status, but because of the love he carried. A love that was deeper than any hardship, stronger than any loss. He had lost a wife, but he had gained a purpose, a strength that would carry his family forward. Over the years, Kofi's life changed in ways he could never have imagined. His hard work, determination, and love for his children became the foundation for his success. Slowly but surely, he built a small business from the ground up, starting with the few skills he had, and eventually, his perseverance began to pay off. Clients began to trust him, recognizing the honesty and dedication he brought to his work. And as word spread, his business grew. With each small victory, Kofi reinvested, expanding his work and ensuring that his children had the best opportunities. He sent them to good schools, encouraged them to pursue their passions, and gave them a stable, loving home filled with warmth and encouragement. The hardships of their past became a distant memory, replaced by a life built on resilience and love. As his children grew, they thrived in ways he had always dreamed. His eldest son became an ambitious student. Inspired by his father's hard work and determination, his daughter developed a gift for the art, painting scenes of their life together, capturing moments that spoke of resilience and happiness. The youngest found joy in books, dreaming of one day becoming a teacher. Kofi watched them with pride, knowing that the sacrifices he had made, the pain he had endured, were worth it. They had grown into strong, compassionate young adults, untouched by the bitterness that had once shadowed their home. They loved him deeply, grateful for the sacrifices he had made, and they knew their father's unwavering love was the bedrock of their success. One evening, as Kofi returned home from work, he was surprised to find someone waiting outside his house. It was Amma. Looking thin and worn, her clothes faded, her once vibrant eyes now dull with regret. She shifted uncomfortably, avoiding his gaze, and when she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with desperation. Kofi, she whispered, her voice trembling. I have come to ask for forgiveness, to ask if I could come back, please. Kofi felt a wave of conflicting emotions rise within him: shock, anger, pity. This was a woman he had once loved, who had walked away from him and their children when they needed her most. He didn't know what to say. I have nothing left, Kofi, she continued, her voice breaking. I lost everything. I thought I could find happiness without you, but I was wrong. Please let me come back. At that moment, his son arrived, his expression shifting from joy to confusion as he saw his mother, or rather, an ugly version of her standing before him. He stepped forward, his face hardening as he looked at Amma. Why are you here? He asked coldly. Amma's voice shook. I came to make things right. I I am here to be with my family again. At that moment the other two arrived, and on recognizing the woman standing there as their mother, they exchanged glances, their faces filled with a determination and coldness that Kofi had never seen before. His daughter, the middle child, stepped forward, her eyes full of pain and anger. We are not your family, she said firmly. You left. You chose yourself over us. So we have nothing to do with you. Amma's face fell, her voice bleeding. I made a mistake. I was lost. But I am here now and I want to make up for it. Please give me a chance. The youngest shook his head, stepping closer to his siblings. You can't make up for what you did. There is no making up for the years that have been lost. We don't need you anymore. We are grown. So go find your joy as you have always wanted. Amma looked at Kofi, her eyes begging him to say something, to intervene. But he could only stand there, torn between the mother of his children and the family he had built in her absence. Finally, his eldest son looked up at him, his voice unwavering. Dad, if you let her come back, we will leave. We cannot forgive her for abandoning us, and we will not stay in a home where she is welcomed. Kofi felt a pang of sorrow, but he understood their pain. Amma had chosen to leave and they had grown up without her, relying on each other and on him. Their loyalty was to the family they had become, the family that had endured without her. He looked at Amma, his voice calm but resolute. Amma, you made your choice long ago. I have forgiven you in my heart, but I can't undo the pain you caused our children. We are at peace now, and I cannot let that be disrupted. I wish you well, but there is no place for you here anymore. They are my priority now. Amma's face crumbled, and without another word, she turned and walked away, her figure fading into the evening shadows. The children had grown up with the knowledge that love was not something to be taken for granted, and that a true family stands together even in the darkest of times. As for Amma, her life took a different turn. She drifted from place to place, seeking comfort and forgiveness, but she found no one willing to welcome her back. The world had little sympathy for those who abandoned their family, and she was left with the consequences of her choices. She lived out her days in solitude, haunted by the faces of the children she had once turned her back on, knowing that she had sacrificed her family for a life that had brought her nothing but emptiness. In the end, Kofi's story became a lesson for all who knew it, a story of resilience, of love, and the power of loyalty. His children grew up carrying his lessons with them, cherishing the family he had fought to keep together. And Kofi, though he had faced many hardships, found peace in knowing that he had done everything he could for those he loved, building a legacy of strength and compassion that will last for generations to come. The end.